right, Avice-Demay, EDU20022 I believe the unit number, student ID 101755136. I recently did a numeracy literacy test that was presented to us in the unit, and it took some time to go through that, and I felt that it was a fairly good test, a good indication of literacy and numeracy capability. We have been studying general capability, and we're fairly well aware of the general need through all of our curriculum and specifically our method areas of the desperate need in the generation we live in of literacy and numeracy. I taught in the vet sector for a couple of years at diploma level, and the government instituted a mandatory passing of numeracy and literacy testing of all candidates that were going into the vet sector. And this was a tremendous thing because we were struggling at the time with students who were coming in, and there was students straight out of school, students that were mature age, and seniors as well who were doing courses with us at the college. And they were struggling because the course material, and there were strict standards to that course material. The course material was sometimes beyond their reach because they were not able to understand the course material, understand how to do assessments, understand some of the particulars that are involved in achieving a diploma level assessment. So we began to look at ways on how to put into our method areas, and mine was IT, networking, web development, so that we could put into that content some ability to raise the literacy and numeracy of many of our cohorts. So it was interesting at the onset to see that there was such a resilience against it by many of the students. They felt that this wasn't important. I think that's a general attitude that you see in a lot of people. They come out of school, they've said, well, I'm done for school, I'm finished for school. There's no more need for me to be involved in any numbers and reading, and this is so untrue. One of the major initiatives of the vet sector was that we had to target people for employability. And of course, when you talk in terms of employability, you're talking about a student being able to leave the school environment, or you're preparing them for leaving the school environment. In doing so, you're going to give them the tools to enable them to be able to be successful outside of the school environment. And this is what the 7 general capabilities are within the Victorian curriculum, which we've looked at since the Melbourne Accord that's been introduced into the Victorian syllabus and curriculum here in Melbourne, Australia. We are trying with everything we have in our own method areas, mine is at the moment Japanese, to give students an ability to deal with numeracy. Numeracy is number 1 in the Japanese area, although that may seem strange because it's we're talking about a language. But there's a huge challenge in introducing literacy and numeracy into the curriculum because in the case of Japanese, they're not on a decimal system. So here we have students who've been working with decimal all their lives, and they come into Japanese, which is my method area, and they are struggling to understand the fact that it's not a decimal system. It doesn't work on decimals. It works on multiplication of numbers, and the way that numbers are calculated are in the thousands, 10,000s, and even if you want to use the word million, you really can't. You're talking about hundreds of thousands or 10 times 100,000. So it's very important. What I found in the test that I did, and we are all subjected to the test, we did a literacy and numeracy test, although I think I did quite well. I got a very high score. Some of the deficiencies I found in my area was literacy. Simply where to put those commas, where to put those full stops, and it highlighted to me that although I felt proficient in English and the use of English, in an environment where I may have to write a hand memo in an office environment, I may have to write something to a colleague, or I may have to, I'm without a computer and I'm going to have to write something out, or at least do some notes. there was a definite lack. Punctuation was my main area of failing. Mathematics was okay. I've always been good with mathematics, but I could see that some people struggled with mathematics, and they were struggling with things such as times and dates and places and how to calculate the periods that are left. And you know, one of the things that's important is when you have homework is to know that you've got 7 days to put it in. And I know that sounds very, very simple, but even at the most base level, to be able to understand and to put concepts into place and understand what a teacher's asking of you, what an assessment's asking of you, is critical. It's very critical. It's the difference between being able to complete a task successfully and build from that task, which is what we're trying to do in general capabilities, is not just to give them access to some skills, but we want to build on those skills and build further so that the method areas that we're dealing, whether it's maths, whether it's English, history, geography, or foreign language like Japanese or Italian, we want to give our students tools that are going to help them. And what was highlighted for me in my test was that this was an area that I need to focus in. And also in my teaching method, I had to be careful. I did a sample class the other day and noticed this was my failing. Not being able to copy something exactly from a textbook and putting that on the board. And students notice that, and this causes you to lose some proficiency in their eyes that you're failing in your area, and you're supposed to be the teacher. So this is something that, as you look at in the theory of literacy, numeracy, and you know, teaching in the method area and involving that subject, you know, there's formal numeracy, formal literacy training, but you also can see the desperate need to put informal training and informal numeracy and literacy capability and training within your area. I know when I was in the college, for instance, I found that we had a card game called 99. Very interesting card game. It's based on mathematics and also has a little bit of literacy in it, and people have to interpret the symbols and numbers on it. But the students highly enjoyed that, and we went from an area where students who had no maths capability at all, as far as numeracy was, they were very deficient. And by the end of a 6-week period, playing this over a 10-minute period before class, all of the students became highly proficient in mental arithmetic. And this was an extreme observation of mine, that it was an informal setting. It wasn't something that was under test procedure, but it was simply to facilitate an informal training in the numeracy and literacy part. Also pattern recognition, which is a lot to do with literacy, was part of the game, and they became highly proficient. They went from scared little cats at the start to very, very adept proponents of that game called 99. Interesting if you look it up on YouTube. It's a great game. I think in terms of communicating the need within a classroom is also critical. Being able to communicate that to your cohorts of students, and to be able to be effective in terms of education, communicating the need for that. Overall, I think there are many, many resources. I mean, we're looking here at some of the principles of numeracy, and behind me here is some of the principles of the writing process and literacy. And even the Center for Disease Control in America have understood that this is an actual critical part of life after school and disease control. You would ask yourself, why would they do that? Because I think they need people to be literate. They need people to understand simple instructions, and employability in the vet sector can be mirrored with giving our cohorts, our students, abilities within their chosen field as they go on, tools that can give them confidence that they can engage their employment, they can engage their career, or the opportunities lay before them.